How to stay positive in tough times. The night everything changed. Have you ever had one of those moments when life just stops? When everything you thought you knew about your future suddenly changes in an instant? I remember sitting in that hospital waiting room at 2 a.m., staring at the fluorescent lights, wondering how I was going to face tomorrow, let alone the rest of my life. Maybe you've been there too. Maybe you're there right now, facing a diagnosis, grieving a loss, worried about money, or simply feeling overwhelmed by a world that seems increasingly difficult to navigate. If so, I want you to know that you're not alone, and more importantly, there is a way through. My name is your name, and today I want to share something deeply personal with you. I want to tell you about the 7 lessons that saved my life, not just physically, but emotionally and spiritually too. These aren't lessons I learned from books or seminars. They're lessons I learned in the trenches of real life, during some of the darkest chapters of my story. But here's what I discovered. Even in our toughest times, we have more power than we realize. We have the power to choose how we respond, how we grow, and how we find meaning in our struggles. Today, I'm going to show you exactly how to do that. Lesson 1. Accept what you cannot change. The first lesson came to me through a woman named Margaret. I met her at a support group 3 years ago. She was 78 years old and had just lost her husband of 50 years. For months, she fought against her new reality. She kept his coffee cup on the table, refused to move his clothes, and spent her days asking, "Why me? Why now?" One day, Margaret shared something that changed everything. She said, "I realized I was using all my energy fighting something that had already happened. I couldn't bring him back, but I could choose what to do with the love he left behind." This is perhaps the hardest lesson of all, learning to accept what we cannot change. It doesn't mean giving up or being passive. It means stopping the exhausting fight against reality and redirecting that energy toward what we can control, our response, our choices, our next steps. When I finally accepted my own situation, really accepted it, something shifted. The weight on my chest began to lift. I stopped wasting precious energy on what if and if only, and started focusing on what now and how can I move forward. Ask yourself today, what are you fighting that you cannot change? What would happen if you stopped fighting and started accepting? Sometimes surrender isn't defeat. It's the first step toward freedom. Lesson 2. Find your daily anchor. During my darkest period, I felt like I was drowning in uncertainty. Each day felt overwhelming, and I didn't know how to begin. That's when I discovered the power of having a daily anchor, something small, consistent, and entirely within my control. For me, it was my morning tea ritual. Every day, no matter how I felt, I would make a proper cup of tea, sit in my favorite chair, and spend 10 minutes just being present. It sounds simple, but it gave me something to count on when everything else felt chaotic. I think about my friend Robert, who started each day by writing 3 things in a journal. Not necessarily good things, just 3 observations about his world. Rain on the window. The sound of his neighbor's dog. The way the light hit his kitchen table. This simple practice became his anchor, grounding him when anxiety threatened to take over. Your anchor doesn't have to be profound. It could be a morning walk, calling a friend, tending to a plant, or even just making your bed. The key is consistency. When life feels unpredictable, having one predictable, positive routine can make all the difference. What could be your daily anchor? Choose something small, something you can do even on your worst days. This isn't about adding pressure to your life. It's about creating a gentle rhythm that reminds you that you're still here, still capable, still in control of small but important things. Lesson 3. Connect with others who understand. One of the most dangerous things we can do during tough times is isolate ourselves. I learned this the hard way. For months, I pulled away from friends and family, convinced that no one could understand what I was going through. I was wrong. The breakthrough came when I reluctantly joined a support group. I remember walking into that room, feeling embarrassed and vulnerable. But within minutes, I heard my own story reflected in someone else's words. The relief was overwhelming. Finally, someone who truly understood. There's something magical about connecting with others who've walked a similar path. They don't try to fix you or offer empty platitudes. They simply sit with you in the mess and say, I know. I've been there too. This doesn't mean you need to join a formal support group, though that can be wonderful. It might mean reaching out to a friend who's faced similar challenges, joining a community group, or even connecting with others online. The key is finding people who understand without judgment. I think of Eleanor, who found her tribe at a local gardening club after her retirement left her feeling purposeless. She didn't go there to talk about her problems. She went to dig in the dirt and plant seeds. But in that shared activity, she found friendship, understanding, and a renewed sense of belonging. Who are your people? Who could you reach out to today? Remember, asking for support isn't a sign of weakness, it's a sign of wisdom. We are not meant to carry life's burdens alone. Lesson 4. Celebrate the small victories. When life is tough, we often focus on what's wrong, what's missing, what's not working. But I learned that survival, and eventually thriving, depends on recognizing and celebrating the small victories along the way. My friend Dorothy taught me this lesson beautifully. She was going through treatment for a serious illness, and each day brought new challenges. But Dorothy kept a victory journal. Some days, the victory was getting out of bed. Other days, it was managing to cook a meal or have a good conversation with her daughter. People think victories have to be big, Dorothy told me. But sometimes the biggest victory is just showing up for your own life, one day at a time. I started my own version of this practice. I began noticing small moments of progress, resilience, or joy. The day I laughed at a joke for the first time in months. The morning I woke up without that heavy feeling in my chest. The afternoon I helped a neighbor with her groceries and felt useful again. These small victories became stepping stones. They reminded me that even in difficult times, good things still happen. Progress still occurs. Life still offers moments of light. What small victory can you celebrate today? Maybe it's getting through a difficult conversation, taking a walk when you didn't feel like it, or simply being kind to yourself when you wanted to be critical. These moments matter more than you might think. Lesson 5. Create new meaning from your experience. This lesson was the hardest for me to learn, but perhaps the most transformative. At some point in our healing journey, we face a choice. We can remain victims of our circumstances, or we can find ways to create meaning and purpose from our pain. I think of my friend Charles, who lost his leg in an accident at age 65. For a year, he was bitter and angry, understandably so. But then he made a decision that changed everything. He started visiting other amputees in the hospital, sharing his story and offering hope. He said, I can't get my leg back, but I can use what I've learned to help others. This doesn't mean your pain was meant to be or that everything happens for a reason. That's not what I'm saying at all. What I'm saying is that we have the power to take our experiences, even the painful ones, and transform them into something that serves not just us, but others. For me, this meant sharing my story, first with close friends, then in support groups, and now with all of you. My pain didn't disappear, but it gained purpose. It became a bridge to connect with others who were struggling. Creating meaning from our experiences doesn't happen overnight. It's often something that emerges gradually as we heal. But when it does, it can transform not just how we see our past, but how we approach our future. How might your experience, as difficult as it's been, become a source of strength or wisdom for others? What have you learned that could help someone else? Sometimes our greatest gifts come wrapped in our greatest challenges. Lesson 6. Practice gratitude, even when it's hard. I know what you might be thinking. Gratitude? Really? When everything is falling apart? I used to think the same thing. Gratitude felt like a luxury I couldn't afford when I was just trying to survive. But I learned that gratitude isn't about pretending everything is wonderful when it's not. It's about training your mind to notice what's still working, what's still good, what you still have, even in the midst of loss and difficulty. My friend Helen showed me how this works. She was dealing with the progression of her husband's dementia, watching the man she loved slowly disappear. It would have been easy to focus only on what was being lost, but Helen made a practice of noticing small moments of connection that still remained. A smile, a squeeze of a hand, a moment of recognition. "I'm not grateful for this disease," she told me, "but I am grateful for 40 years of marriage, for the good days we still have, for the friends who support us, for the strength I didn't know I had." This kind of gratitude doesn't deny pain or minimize struggle. It simply refuses to let pain be the only story. It insists that even in difficult times, there are still threads of goodness woven through our days. Start small. Maybe it's gratitude for a warm cup of coffee, a comfortable bed, or a phone call from a friend. Maybe it's appreciation for your body's strength, your mind's resilience, or your heart's capacity to keep loving despite loss. What can you find to be grateful for today? Not because you have to, but because noticing these things can shift something inside you, creating space for hope to grow. Lesson 7. Remember, this too shall pass. The final lesson is both the simplest and the most profound. This too shall pass. Whatever you're facing right now, the pain, the uncertainty, the overwhelming difficulty, it will not last forever. This doesn't mean everything will return to exactly as it was, but it means that your current level of suffering will change. I learned this from watching the seasons change during my hardest year. Winter felt endless, but spring always came. The trees that looked dead in February were blooming in April. Nature reminded me that change is the only constant, and that includes the changes we can't yet see coming. My friend Arthur, who lost his wife after 60 years of marriage, told me something I'll never forget. He said, "The acute pain of loss doesn't last forever. It transforms into something else, a tender sadness, a grateful memory, a deeper appreciation for love. The pain doesn't disappear, but it changes shape, and somehow, that makes it bearable." This perspective doesn't rush us through our healing or minimize our current struggles. It simply reminds us that we are not stuck forever in this moment, no matter how permanent it might feel. When you're in the thick of difficulty, when you can't see a way forward, remember this: you have survived difficult times before. You have more strength than you know. And this chapter of your story, as hard as it is not the final chapter. What feels overwhelming today may feel manageable tomorrow. What seems impossible this week may become possible next month. This too shall pass, and you will be there to witness its passing. Your turn to share. As I sit here today, sharing these lessons with you, I'm struck by how far I've come from that frightened person in the hospital waiting room. I'm not the same person I was before my difficulties began. I'm different, and in many ways, I'm stronger. The 7 lessons I've shared aren't magic bullets. They won't make your problems disappear overnight. But they can change how you carry those problems, how you respond to them, and how you grow through them. To accept what you cannot change, to find your daily anchor, to connect with others who understand, to celebrate small victories, to create meaning from your experience, to practice gratitude even when it's hard, and to remember that this too shall pass. These aren't just coping strategies. They're pathways to resilience, to growth, to a life that can be meaningful even in the midst of difficulty. I want to hear from you. In the comments below, share which of these lessons resonated most with you. Maybe you have a lesson of your own to add. Maybe you have a story of how you found hope in a difficult time. Your words might be exactly what someone else needs to hear today. If this video helped you in any way, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe to this channel. I share new content every week about living well, finding resilience, and discovering meaning in all seasons of life. And please, share this video with someone who might need these words today. Sometimes the simple act of sharing hope can change someone's life. Remember, you're not alone in this journey. We are all walking each other home, one story at a time, one day at a time, one small victory at a time. Thank you for being here, for listening, and for being part of this community of people who refuse to give up on hope. Until next time, be gentle with yourself, and remember, this too shall pass, and you will be okay.